Hello, everybody. Welcome into another edition. I believe this is episode 5 now. We're doing this over a month now. It's pretty crazy. Pump It Up, Kentucky Baseball Podcast. And as always, Pump It Up is presented by Friends of Coal. Friends of Coal is dedicated to informing, educating Kentucky citizens about the coal industry and its vital role in the state's future. We provide a united voice for an industry that has been and remains a critical economic contributor to Kentucky. By working together, we can provide good jobs and benefits for future generations. Coal is resilient, reliable, and affordable. Friends of Coal is a volunteer organization. All are invited to be a part of our organization, which consists of proud Kentuckians as well as residents from beyond our borders. Head to friendsofcoalkentucky.org to learn more. I usually co-host Derek Terry is unable to join us, but we've got a special guest, and it's the guy who's running things over here at KSR on the Kentucky baseball beat. Jeff Drummond's been doing this a long time on the Kentucky baseball beat. Really, every Kentucky beat there is. Jeff's been around a long time. Jeff, new member of KSR. Good to have you. How you doing, man?
Hey, it feels good to be here, Adam. Doing great.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time. We're just going to talk some baseball today, but the big news really kind of popped as soon as we got on here, Jeff. It sounds like number 6, Kentucky shortstop, could be returning soon.
Yeah, I got a message from a source before we went on the air tonight. Said you could see him in the lineup, potentially hitting and running the bases. May even be like a DH situation.
That's what, yeah.
The way it sounds like. But not quite ready to be out there in the field. I think they're going to kind of gently nurse that situation back in, because that's where you're most likely probably to mess something up if you're going to. But having his bat back right now in particular, if he hasn't lost, too much time to, put himself behind the 8 ball there with a couple of weeks missing action, will be big for a lineup that's kind of still scuffling to produce runs in a normal fashion. We saw them do the Minge fashion here in their latest game with 7 walks and getting plunked 5 times. That's peak Mingione ball, but they need some guys back in the lineup. Getting him back and getting Cerny back at some point would be big for them.
Yeah, I think we've been hearing the same thing. I think that it was trending towards him getting close. We've shared that on KS Board. Get over there if you haven't already. So finally, he's getting back. I've heard he really wants to get out there and play. I thought they might just throw him out and play shortstop right away. It sounds like they are being a little careful here, which I think is smart. But just in general, like, he was their best player, right? Everyone knows. And I think when you lose a guy like that, Jeff, everyone's got to move up in the lineup, right? The guy's batting ahead of him, maybe take on some more responsibility. Now, if you get him back and he's able to be himself, it could solidify or make things easier, I think, for everyone else. Because not only have they, score runs in normal fashion, seems like he's been tinkering a lot, which is expected early. But I think part of the reason Mingione's been tinkering so much with the lineup card is just because they're just looking for answers, because this was unexpected, right? They didn't have Bell, and then Cerny's missed last 4 games, so they haven't had their guys in the lineup, and that's organically caused some issues for them.
Yeah, and he's kind of the straw that stirs their drink, so to speak, and it can be contagious when you get a guy like that back in the lineup, and he just he has long, productive at bats, dangerous power threat. And when you put him back in there, sometimes it alleviates some of the pressure maybe the other guys felt to kind of step up in his absence, and they can just play more to their talents instead of some of the kind of, I don't know if pressure is the right word for it, but you can see some guys that are really scuffling to get it going this season, and are good proven players who can swing the bat, but it just hadn't happened yet.
Yeah, I think, like, if you were going to power rank batters in the lineup, I think Bell was one, and I think you could put in a particular order Cerny and Ryan Schwartz. And Schwartz has been one that's kind of think, scuffled a little bit. Like he got in a little funk here. He's having a hard time, I think, getting out of this slump. He was batting up third and fourth in the lineup. They moved him down to ninth, eighth, trying to get him going. But yeah, I think like he maybe got some pressure on him, and don't have, Bell. It's not front and center. So yeah, I think that is definitely something that could probably cause some problems. And to me, Jeff, I think the one thing with Minji on ball is like you play a certain style on offense, but if you can't get guys on base, you see the holes in that kind of system pretty quick. So that's been an issue, finding that consistency, and they struggled against left-handed pitching. They got shut out up at Evansville, 1-0. That was left-handed. EKU, they had a hard time getting going, and that was a guy that hadn't really had a lot of success. The St. John's guy, I believe, on Saturday had gotten shellacked earlier in the year, and they had a hard time going against him. Now, I don't know if Bell will help that, but there's definitely some issues with the lineup that are concerning once the competition starts to get more intense.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And you mentioned it earlier. For Minja's approach to work best, you need that constant pressure on the opposing pitcher. It's built upon deep counts, getting guys on base, putting pitchers in stressful situations. And a lot of times this year, that first guy up has just been hitting a can of corn pop up. And you've seen like even some of UK's rallies have started with 2 outs where they're just not getting anything going initially. Hopefully getting Bell back in there, having some guys maybe take some swings, not under so much pressure, will help them get some things going a little bit earlier and look more like the team we kind of expected them to look like going into the season.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you make it a good point. Just having Bell to grind some ABs too. Like I think they've been missing that.
And the power potential. We should forget about that because we haven't seen a whole lot of home runs so far this season. I forget what the actual number is. It's probably 5, maybe 4 or 5. And one of those inside the park.
Yeah. I think they got up to 6 because Lawrence has 2. Someone else has 2. Tarnish has 2. And then Campbell went grand slam the other night. And then Cerny against, I think it's 6. I mean, it's 6 through, what have they played, 13 games now?
Yeah.
I mean, they could, Hindle's had, I think maybe Hindle has one in there. Hindle's had a really good year finding doubles. But yeah, they could use the slug. There's no doubt about it.
To their credit, they've peppered the walls.
Yeah, Brown especially, yeah.
They've had a ton of either doubles, or outs all the way to the wall this season. I think as it warms up a little bit, we're going to see some of those carry a little bit at KPP and turn into home runs.
Yeah, I think just to me in general, like I think that you could point out some issues, but they're winning games right now and they're figuring out a way and they're doing just enough, I think, on offense. And part of the reason they're winning a lot of games is really this pitching. I think the start weekend rotation got a lot of the attention early, which it should have. Jelkin's been outstanding. Cleaver's been good as advertised. I think Nate Harris, I think I've been impressed with him as their Sunday guy. But this week, you even see the bullpen kind of pick it up. And even the defense behind them, I think, has been pretty solid overall. What has been your overall or early take on the pitching? And it seems like they've got the pieces here to really, I think, do some damage once, we get serious into the season, once SEC series start.
Looking back over the years, getting the pitching staff kind of settled into roles has been a big question mark for Kentucky, even in some of Kentucky's best seasons. Those years of, going to the Super Regional or to the College World Series. At this time of year, early March, they had question marks and we're trying to figure some things out. I think this team is ahead of the curve, especially with that weekend rotation. Man, you got those 3 guys at the top. At the very least, they give your team a confidence and a feeling going in any series they play. We've got a shot. with these three guys. Now, we need to see if that continues to hold up into SEC play when they face some of the best bats in America. But I think those guys are going to hold up. And a little bit, the more surprising end of it for me is how good this bullpen has been so far.
Mm-hmm.
They'll have to answer the same question facing SEC bats. But into the ninth inning against EKU in that second game, they had gone 20.1 scoreless innings of relief before finally giving up 2 there in the ninth inning. In all my time of covering the Batcats, I have not seen a stretch like that from the bullpen, especially in March with a lot of these midweek games.
Yeah.
Playing a lot of young and inexperienced guys, they're going to give up their share of hits and runs. These guys haven't done that.
Well, really, it's been kind of a double dip because he had the stretch with the starters that did that. I believe one of the series, it was maybe Evansville, where they had that big stretch of just like 30 Ks, 20 innings, 1 or 2 runs. And now then the bullpen comes back and kind of does that for a stretch here for Kentucky. I think you got Jack Bennett maybe to tag with Jelkin on Fridays. Connor Madison has impressed, I think, in his limited sample size. And then you've got some other guys, I think, that are stepping up and filling out roles. And it seems like they have defined roles early, which is a surprise in a college baseball season. Because as I tell people all the time, you look around, these teams are losing midweek games. It just happens in college baseball. Things get weird. I can't remember who had UCLA on the ropes the other night. Moorhead went up to Louisville and smoked them. That EKU team almost beat Louisville a couple weeks ago. LSU is scuffling right now. Arkansas, I believe, just lost to UT Arlington, maybe. So, like, these losses, they'll happen. Vandy, yeah, I saw that Vandy just lost. So these happen in college baseball. So that's always to keep in mind because things get weird on the midweek. But I think, for Kentucky, they lost a game against Moorhead where you just felt like the lineup came up short that last 4 innings. But even in that game, I thought the bullpen, after kind of a rough start, just really kept them in the game, gave them a chance to win it at the end. And you just look up and you're like, hey, now, if they're getting the starting pitching consistently, which that's the big wild card with Jelkin. We've never seen it before, so can he stay healthy through a whole season? But if they get this and they have this bullpen, like that sets a pretty high bar, I think, for this team and a pretty high floor when you start predicting what they could end up becoming really once we get to Selection Monday.
Yeah, I think a lot of us came into this season knowing pretty much what to expect from Cleaver and Harris, who have been through those wars and shown that they can handle it. Jelkin was a big question mark coming off the long layoff, but he looks like another one of those guys that they go off for Tommy John surgery and come back even better than ever, the way he's doing. Now it's crazy what they can do with that procedure and the proper rehab these days. But the bullpen part of it has been the most pleasant surprise on my behalf because I just had no idea outside of a guy or two what to expect down there.
Yeah, and I think you've got Dan Roselle just done, I think, terrific job here, just kind of building that out. And, they've got the starting pitching figured out. And how last year ended, I think, was tough because they basically just ran out of pitching in that regional. So, but overall, I think you've got to really give him a ton of credit for kind of piecing it together. And this year kind of looks like his, at least to this point, looks like his Mona Lisa because it seems like they've got the pieces and all the pieces kind of are coming together. So it's exciting, I think, if you're going out, Kentucky baseball fan, you're going out to these games just about what this team could be, because if you get the pitching, anyone knows follows baseball, if you get the pitching and the defense, you're going to have a really good chance every night you go out to play.
One of my favorite parts of being out there is whenever he makes his mound visits and they play BIG. when he comes to the mound, it's great. The whole stadium's kind of bouncing and dancing around. We haven't heard that a whole lot because he hadn't had to come out there.
Right.
Hardly at all. It's just like we were talking about at press box the other day. It's like he he's just sat over there and watched and enjoyed the way these guys have thrown.
Yeah, because it's not – even when they're – like this week I was really impressed. I know EKU's first year, they're scuffling. But, like, they're not – they didn't even need to go to the bullpen really a ton. I mean, they did on the second night, but it wasn't out of necessity per se. Mm-hmm. And then you've got, Skelding gives you, I believe, 4 innings up there in Richmond. And it just seems like it's just smooth sailing. It's almost feels a little too smooth to this point in the year.
They're just kind of handing the baton off,
Right.
There's your shutdown, scoreless frame. The next guy gets it. There's his. And it's really exciting to see the possibilities that they could do it. They got a guy in the mix we didn't mention yet, Leighton Harris, who may have some of the best stuff of anybody on the staff, and he's throwing from the left side. He's going to be a huge key as they move forward and get into SEC play, because you're talking about some of the best left-handed bats you're going to see in the entire country call this league home. So he's going to have a lot of matchups later on.
Yeah, I think Leighton, obviously, if something were to happen to one of the weekend starters, he would be, I think, a prime candidate to be the next man up potentially. Maybe him or Jack Bennett to start a game. But, yeah, the left matchups, I think him and Jackson Susie are kind of really important players for them moving forward, especially if this becomes a pitching dominant team as it is to this point, getting those matchups out of the pen and being able to use them on a Saturday when you might need 4 or 5 pitchers to get through a game and not have, you don't want to burn a bunch of arms before Sunday. So, I think they're going to have a big role. Susie's had some good moments, I think. Harris looked better. Like, that was probably his best performance last night. He's had kind of a weird start to the year. It just feels like I think the first game he walked a batter and gave up a bunt hit, and it was like, geez, the ball didn't leave the infield, and they scored a couple runs. And he's gotten off to a little slow start, but yeah, I think his importance you can't really undersell.
Yeah, I had that one outing where absolutely came in and shut it down in his first inning. They tried to stretch it to a second inning, and it got away from him a little bit. I think they would like to get it back to where they can get 2 out of him. But for right now, they love the way he comes out and throws and attacks that first inning after getting the call down to the pen.
Yeah, I think overall just, even a guy like Berkeley Bounds we've talked about on the show a few times, like even him, just like I wasn't expecting that. And he looks like a guy that could, maybe he's already closed. I think he's got 2 saves already for them. So it seems like just in the roster building process, they really found some gems here for specifically pitching in the bullpen. And that could really, I think, go a long way as this season kind of gets stretched out.
That may be where the rep of Roselle has really started paying off too, to be able to get these guys in the transfer portal. He's such a well-known commodity right now for some of the work he's done with guys in the past. I wonder if that's not helping them build more of a complete staff. And we've seen good pitchers at times at Kentucky over the last 20 years, for example, but it's a guy here and there. We haven't seen like great pitching staffs, and they're getting closer to. I think they had a very good one here a couple of years ago. They have the potential to be even better than that with this group.
Yeah, like to me, I always think about Tyler Guilfoyle. I think is how you pronounce it. Like it was like if you can just get the lead and give him the ball last 2+ innings, you feel really great. It was just getting to that point was just hard, right? But with this one, I think you see, and I just like the balance. I think what they could, when you start forecasting what it could look like on an SEC weekend, I just like the balance of some of the options they have. And they don't have a ton of left-handed pitching, but I think they might have enough here. Even Will Coleman, I've kind of been impressed with early. I think he may be able to steal some innings as we go on. So really impressed with that. I just mentioned Bounds. One of the players I think has been more popular to talk about on the board has just been Owen Jenkins, who was Bounds, I think, high school teammate, Lexington Catholic. I think a lot of people have been impressed with him. What have your impressions of him early? Because I've been a little surprised. I didn't think we'd see somebody take over the catcher position, and he's done that as a true freshman.
Stunned, really, honestly, because most first-year guys right out of high school, they're going to have their ups and downs and take some lumps before they figure it out. But he came in so polished,
Yeah,
and just so mature. He works deep counts almost every time he's up there. I would say he might be the guy with the most 3-2 counts on the roster so far. I don't have that stat in front of me, but it's got to be pretty close. The way he's making pitchers work, and he's just got a great command of the strike zone. And when he swings, that's even more impressive to me for a young guy. It's short, it's compact, it's really quick. He's not trying to do too much with it, which has led to a lot of nice hits for him. I think in time, as he matures and continues to grow into his body, he's going to show more power.
yeah.
There's a lot of power potential there. But he's not a guy who's come into his first year of college thinking, I need to come up here and knock it out of the park every time.
Yeah, I think you make a good point. Just good ABs, getting good barrel on the ball. Because you look up, he doesn't have the extra base hits, but when you watch him play, you feel like he's hitting the ball hard. Mm-hmm. And he's getting good.
And you just look at that frame too. He's
mm-hmm.
really built, really strong. I think as we go along, we're going to start seeing more, gap doubles and a few more home runs as it warms up.
And he's got a hose back there.
Mm-hmm. They've got a couple of guys back there that can do it. Taggart Tyson, last game against Eastern Kentucky, threw out 2 guys trying to steal in 1 inning. And I asked some of the guys over there who've watched a lot of UK baseball, when's the last time we saw that? And they weren't sure. They think Devin Burks may have done it at some point. I wouldn't be surprised if he did, but I can't remember ever seeing a guy throw out 2 in the same inning.
Which is why I tell everyone, this is why you watch midweeks. You see stuff you never seen before. You see catcher throwing out 2 in the same inning. You just some madness over there on the midweeks. And they got one coming up, I believe, Tuesday against Ball State, Jeff, and that's the last game before they get into SEC play. Alabama, Friday, March 13th. I believe that's SEC tournament weekend. So the basketball team will be down in Nashville, but Kentucky will start a big series against Alabama. And Alabama is a team, they've got a guy, last name LeBron, who's actually hitting the cover off the ball. He's going to be one of the better hitters. But prognostication-wise, they were kind of expected to finish towards the bottom of the league. So that's a good, I think, kind of early test. I think it's Justin LeBron's that kid's name. I think that's a good early test, Jeff, to just see where Kentucky is. Because if they're kind of in this top half and maybe position themselves as a contender, you never want to say – make a big statement, but that's a series where you feel like they should handle specifically early and how they're playing right now.
I think it's a pretty good measuring stick to see where they are early, especially when you got to face a guy like that in the lineup. It sounds like Alabama not getting a whole lot of help around him just yet. So it may be a situation where, and Kentucky's shown it in the past, they're not afraid to work around a guy and not let one guy kill them like that. So it'll be interesting to see what the approach is with him in that series.
Yeah, and I think just overall this weekend, the Citadel, I think you could make the case that this is probably, arguably, maybe the best team they've played in non-conference so far, potentially. Now, I believe they're 5-5, but they handled a Marshall team that Evansville struggled with earlier in the year. And they just went to Tallahassee, I believe, last weekend. And it was a sweep, but it was a competitive sweep. I believe one game went, I think, 12 innings. Another one was like 5-2, and the other one was like 2-1. It wasn't a ton of runs scored. So that could be interesting. We just saw a series where Kentucky played St. John's, and they swept with 9 total runs over 3 games. And, I'm interested to dig in the Citadel here in the next couple of days to see kind of where they're at and what they're doing, because Kentucky had some offensive issues, but they're getting Bell back. And so that's going to be interesting. There's also rain in the forecast, so how they kind of work around that potentially. But a big series, I think, just for the Bell acclimation project to try to get him ready before, you get to that 10-week sprint in the SEC.
I'm kind of wondering, before I forget about it, though, you mentioned the weather. That could be a big deal, especially with Kentucky having already played 2 games this week. I know they're keeping an eye on that, wondering what they'll do in the event we have a day where it's really bad and it may wipe out a game. This could be a situation where you only play 2 games of a series.
Yeah.
I don't know if they'll go to great extremes to get 3 in if it's real nasty and put themselves in that position. But the Citadel, folks tell me that have watched them a few times, it's almost going to be a little bit in terms of Kentucky looking in the mirror in terms of style of play. They're going to be real pesky at the plate. They're going to take a lot of pitches. They're going to try to draw walks, get hit by pitches, run the bases, bunt. It's almost like that Spider-Man meme.
Yeah.
They're pointing at each other. So this will be a pretty good test for the Cats.
I feel like we've heard that a lot this year. It feels like I think there was a lot of that talk with Morehead State. I know there's a lot of these former Kentucky players that are coaching at these other schools, but I think Greensboro, that was kind of a comp for Greensboro. It feels like that's been kind of, or maybe Evansville, one of the two, but it feels like that's been a comp that, what they play Kentucky, they play like us. And so maybe this is, we talk about Minji on style a lot and how it's different in the SEC, but maybe it's kind of a thing that might be growing a little bit in college baseball.
Well, I would say people have to take a look at it and say, this can really help you overcome some weak spots or camouflage some parts of your roster that may not be completely up there with the main contenders in your league, but it can help you, steal runs and steal games. I like it. It's grown on me at first, especially the bunting aspect kind of drove me crazy a little bit. They're not bunting a great deal.
They aren't a ton yet. Yeah.
So far, I think that will come more into play, but they're trying to build some confidence in swinging the bats right now. But I just think it's great when you go, especially when you go see it in person and see the effect that it has on the other dugout and how it just drives a lot of these SEC opponents crazy. And I think they lose their mental focus a little bit playing against men's ball.
Why is that, you think? You think it's just because it's so not what they're used to or not what they're comfortable, I guess?
Yeah, and just mainly perhaps not deemed a real cool way to play. We see a lot of these teams. Okay. I won't point out anybody in particular, but I know it flustered one team directly south of the state line.
Who might be in over at in the Bay Area right now.
But it just seems that combined with the endless energy and pep from the dugout. Another thing that we haven't seen like to an extreme like we have with previous UK teams, they haven't quite got that dugout shenanigans thing.
Yeah.
But it's coming to life a little bit. We saw it a little bit more in these last 3 or 4 games at KPP.
Yeah, it's that's the I guess you would say the Minjion culture or the Minjion way. But yeah, you haven't that has been interesting. There hasn't been as much bunting. It's hard for me to tell. I haven't been out there yet. Hard for me to tell on the broadcast just what dugout's going, but I did notice some more noise here. I feel like this last week.
They've had a few guys kind of step that up a little bit. Minj may have prodded a couple of the guys, but the way I understand it, they've got some funny guys on this roster, but they're still kind of coming into their own and trying to find where their voice should be heard. They're being a little bit quiet right now, but they think as the season plays out that you're going to see a little bit more personality emerge and maybe you'll see more fun over there like we've seen the last few years.
Yeah, some of that too, I feel like it's just the era we're in, right? A lot of these guys are new. They're playing on a new team and just, I guess you've been around the guys, but you've never been on a baseball team and baseball game with these guys. So everyone's just trying to, I guess, not step on toes or just kind of figure out their place on the squad.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So Jeff, for a guy who just, you've seen a lot of baseball, you've seen a lot of college baseball, you've seen a lot of SEC baseball covering this team. Just where do you think Kentucky, just big picture wise, where do you think they are, and where do you think like this team could go? Like, how optimistic do you think people should be about this club as we kind of move forward and the season starts to get more serious?
I think really good shape right now to be at least in the upper half, maybe of the SEC. I think the pitching is going to give them a chance to win in any series they go into. The big key is going to be, in regard to their ceiling, is how much more can they get from the bats and the offense. And we should start seeing that pretty soon with Bell's return.
Yeah, I think when you're talking upper half SEC, if you're hosting a regional, right? Like you're going to be hosting a regional.
And we've seen how important that is to Kentucky's chances.
Yeah, you're hosting a regional. So that is super important, bare minimum. So if you're like you're in the top 25 all year, all of that. So I'm with you on that. To me, I think Jelkin and his presence and how everyone else fits in around him is really important. They have to keep him healthy, keep him going through this full season, because I think he's got a chance to put a lot of pressure on these opposing teams. Friday night, like we got to deal with this guy. And then if Kentucky, stacks wins on these Fridays, they're going to win a lot of series, because that's so, like in college baseball, I think the coaches stress it all the time, but I believe it because of just how the bullpen managing goes. And like, if you can win on Friday, you're going to have the heavy advantage to kind of win these series. And if you're winning a lot of Friday games, you should be winning a lot of SEC games in totality once you get to the end of the year. So for me, I think he's the biggest key. And then getting Bell back in the lineup, getting Cerny back in the lineup. I think they've missed him these last couple of games. He's good for one a game to get a free pass a game on the hit by pitch, but he's also got some power. We've seen him, as you mentioned, drive the gaps, get the ball to the wall. He hit one out to dead center. He's hit 10 home runs every year in college baseball when he was in Indiana. So he matters. And I think getting Schwartz back and going is going to be really important, especially as I think this competition heats up. And I kind of threw the lineup out there on the board. I really like what their lineup could be once you start putting the pieces together. Everyone's able to stay available. If you get, you get Schwartz, you get maybe Hansen, get warmed up a little bit. You've got Owen Jenkins, who's been a nice surprise, nice contact hitter. Hudson Brown. I think the way he hits travels. I don't know if he's going to hit a lot of home runs, but he just gets solid contact on the ball, finds grass. Luke Lawrence, we've seen him do it in the SEC before. We've seen Tyler Bell do it. I just think when you start putting the pieces together, and if you can get everybody healthy, I think there's going to be enough there on offense where if you tag that with the pitching, specifically as long as you keep Jelkin healthy, I think they could be really kind of dangerous in this SEC.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think there could be another aspect that is aided too from Bell coming back, puts guys more in their natural positions.
That too, yeah.
Luke Lawrence has done a really fine job at shortstop so far, probably better than I would have expected in a tough spot. But you get to shift him back over to second, and then Hindle can play third or other spots for you. He's a real versatile guy. You can move all over the place and play. So Kentucky's starting pitching will benefit even more from having their best version of defense out there once Bell is cleared to be back at shortstop.
Yeah, that's a good point. I haven't really thought about that a lot, but like the defense they've got behind the pitching without Bell has honestly been pretty impressive. Like Lawrence has been, I think, pretty good at short. Like he made a great play behind the bag. He were in a game recently. I can't remember who it was against, maybe St. John's. Hindle has been solid at second. There's been some shaky moments for Cerny, but I thought Clayton Cloud came in here recently and was rock solid over there. He made a great play against St. John's, climbed the ladder. What could have been maybe a 2 RBI double to tie the game, just totally eliminated it.
So that's been enough about him. Yeah, we've been doing a lot of other guys, but that's been a little bit of a revelation that with Cerny going down, you're like, third could really get tricky now. Yeah. This is an impressive young guy, especially at the plate. He has some of the same attributes that you see with Owen Jenkins we talked about earlier. And
patient.
When he hits the ball really hard. Ball comes off his bat really well.
Yeah, I mean, like the St. John's game, I believe that was Saturday. He climbed the ladder, took away a double, and then came back the next inning, RBI, a hard hit ball. Just been impressive and just really has helped, I think. So for him, I don't. This year, we'll see what he brings throughout the whole season, but next year he's a piece they could definitely, I think, rely on and plug and play somewhere in that infield.
Yeah, you got to like the way not only they're building teams now from season to season and using the portal, but it appears like they're putting pieces in place with a look ahead to the future at the same time. And that's when you really get your program rolling. Like some of the elite programs that are perennial powerhouses have that assembly line where there's always a young guy moving up and ready to play that next season, and you don't really miss a beat.
Yeah, absolutely. And fun times. Highly recommend getting out to the ballpark here soon. There are going to be some big weekend series over there at Kentucky Prep Park. This is a team, again, I think they're in position to make some noise this year. Jeff Drummond and myself will be on the beat covering you from every angle. Jeff, thank you for your time. Thanks for joining us here on Pump It Up. We'll have to do it again.
All right. Anytime, Adam.
And we'll get out of here sometime. Peak will get it when eventually.
I wondered if it was the end of one of those 80s sitcoms where they paused. And everybody just looked at each other.